Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are digging into and discussing a more and more common trend amongst the newer ships that have been announced, even the newer ships that have been released here recently into the game. And that is, Wargaming is going a little hard with the copy-paste combination here pretty recently. I mean, if you look at the most recent dev blog, the Montcalm, the Orion 44, the Rodney, those are all ships that we essentially have the base version of those ships in game already. The Montcalm is a Legal just with smaller guns. The Orion 44 is a Leander, and the Rodney is of course a sister ship to the Nelson class. So we already have these ships models, and these ships already exist in game, right? And even if you look at the most recent update, 13.1, we got the Cecilia, which is just a Colombo with a different secondary battery configuration. You can go a bit further back in the dev blogs, and like with the Wisconsin, which is the Iowa sister ship, right? It's just the Iowa. We already have her in game. She just has a different configuration, and as far as her statistics go and her setup, right, it's pretty much the same. So what's going on with this, and why are we getting this huge wave of copy-paste ships? It seems to be, we aren't really getting that many new models. I can think of like the Michelangelo was probably the most recent actual new model that was released into the game. We have the Commonwealth cruisers coming up, but a lot of those are just, slightly different Royal Navy ships, right? So what's going on with that? That's what we're digging into in today's video. So if you find yourself enjoying this video at any point in it, please make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Helps out on the YouTube side of things, and of course we must appease our algorithm overlord. So let's go ahead and get on into this. So copy-paste ships aren't something that's like new, right? Wargaming's been doing this for a very long time. You can look at the amount of Fletchers we have in the game just off the top of my head. You've got the Fletcher, you've got the Greek Fletcher, you've got the Kid, you've got the Black, and there's probably one or two more that I'm forgetting about here. Then there's the Pan-Asian one as well, right? So there's like 5 Fletchers in the game already, just off the bat there. And if you look at other ships too, like the West Virginia, we have the West Virginia 41, the West Virginia 44, which are the same ships. They are just, slight alterations are made to the model and to their statistics, right? And there's probably at least, I would hazard, 100 examples of this, if not more, probably more than that in this game. So it's not exactly a new concept, right? But they have been doing a lot more of it here recently. And the question is, why is that? Why are they just hitting copy-paste with some minor alterations to the models here? Well, if you would read through the subreddit or YouTube comment section of any YouTuber or the Discord, a very popular theory, and I'm not sure if it's really a true theory or a meme, is that, well, in the divorce, Lesta got the art department, and Wargaming, they're having to completely rebuild the art team, and because of that, they're just pumping out these ships with minor alterations to their geometry and to their superstructure. But for the most part, most of the heavy lifting has been done by Lesta, who was in charge of developing the game for most of its life until the divorce, if you will, here. What was that, like last year or a couple of years ago, right? So they're just, doing the bare minimum to change these ships and then keep that flow of content into the game. That way there's no slowdown in the new content for the game, or of course Wargaming's revenue flow from World of Warships, right? So that is one theory. There's a pretty easy way to actually check on this theory to see if it's true that, like, Lesta got the art department and Wargaming got nothing out of it. Because you can go to Lesta's dev blog and check out what they're doing in their game. And I hate to break it to you, But they ain't doing a whole lot different than what Wargaming's doing. If you haven't seen the images coming out of the Lesta version of the game, which is like, it's called like World of Ships, something like that. It might just be World of Warships, but in Russian. But anyway, if you look at some of their more recent additions into their game from their dev blog, they're doing what Wargaming's doing, but they're just taking it to the entire, like, fantasy version of kit bashing, right? Like, there is the Kearsarge we talked a while ago, but with Russian turrets. And then there's a Yami with Russian turrets. And then they have this abomination that's like, was it like a Helena, but with all of its guns forward, the superstructure or something like that. They are literally kit bashing in Lesta's version of the game. Yeah, so I don't think Lesta made off with the art department intact either, if that's the theory that we're going with here. Now, keep in mind, too, that, you know, both of these games have the same base ships, right? Like, up until the divorce, again, if you will, last year or whenever, they all have the same ships in game. It's just, yeah, one's developed by Lesta now, one's developed by Wargaming. And I think that is where you'll find the truth of the matter, is that at this point, there's somewhere along the lines of 500-something ships in this game. Now, constructing a naval vessel is not a small undertaking, right? There's a lot of designing involved. Before you even get to actually laying the keel of the ship down, you've spent probably millions and millions and millions of dollars just on designing a ship. And then you get to actually putting the ship together. And that's another, you know, God knows how much money. You know, in today's money, billions of dollars to Lockheed Martin, right, to construct an aircraft carrier, right? So back in the day, it wasn't exactly, you know, that cheap either. So designing and constructing warships is not something that a lot of nations could really do. You have to be a major world power in order to do this. And then keep in mind, too, that the time span of World of Warships is, you know, early to mid 20th century. So you've only got really 50, 60 years if you go into like the 1890s with some of like the protected cruisers and some of the very, very, very early dreadnoughts, right? If you can even call them a dreadnought or a pre-dreadnought, really. You could do that, but that's about 60 years of ship designs and real ships being launched that you can pull from. And that's not a lot when you get down to it. You really only have a handful of countries that produce, you know, large capital ships like battleships and aircraft carriers. And Wargaming long ago exhausted the supply of that. There's maybe one or two nations that are missing like a carrier, like the French carriers aren't really a thing yet for some reason. I'm sure they're probably coming sometime soon. And, you know, a couple other capital ships here and there that are missing. But for the most part, those are all in. And then you get to like cruisers, heavy cruisers and light cruisers. Again, Wargaming has a lot of them covered. They're missing very few at this point. We have the Spanish cruisers. We're missing like what? If you're talking about like cruisers and destroyers, like Spanish destroyers. And again, maybe a nation here or there is kind of out of it. But for the most part, they're kind of out of real steel ships to add in terms of completely new nations, right? And they're gonna have to be leaning more and more and more into the paper ships, right? The paper ships that were only designed but never built. And they've been doing that, of course, a lot here recently. So when you look at it, it's like, well, no duh, they're having to do sister ships and earlier versions of ships that we already have in game if they want to keep up with their very consistent pace of, you know, new content every 5 weeks. If you think about it, that's kind of insane how this game gets an update every 5 weeks that brings new ships into the game. That's a lot. That is a lot to keep up with. And then again, when you're working with, warships and trying to go off of, real still historical designs as much as possible every 5 weeks, you're gonna start to run out of entirely new ships, and you're gonna have to start doing crazier and crazier things. And I mean, think about it too. We're not to the point to where, like Lesta is, where they're strapping Scharnhorst turrets onto a Bayern, right? Like, that's what Lesta's doing. We're not quite there yet. And another thing that I find very odd about some of the complaints, like with the Wisconsin and the Rodney especially, when those two ships got announced, which are two ships that are, of course, been highly, highly demanded by the player base, I was surprised anyone was complaining at all that they were adding these ships in. But sure enough, you can go look on my video for the Rodney and for the Wisconsin announcement. There's commenters saying, oh, it's just a copy-paste ship. I can't believe they're being so lazy. It's like, what? Like, those are two highly sought-after historical ships that we've been waiting for. And, I don't think there's much wrong with, adding in the sister ships and stuff that, have their own storied history and stuff, as these ships do, right? I mean, like, the ship existed in real life. It's pretty neat to see it in game. I think it's cool no matter what, right? But we are getting to that point where we're going to start to see more and more of these sister ships get added into the game. I'm down to see, like, the Washington get added in, and some other South Dakotas, right? That's cool. But I don't know. I mean, I can see the complaint that hey, they're being lazy, they're just copy pasting stuff now, but it's like they kind of have to. It's not like tanks where you don't need as much resources to construct and design your own tanks for a nation, because the amount of steel and resources it takes to make one tank is like doesn't even make up probably 0.5% of what is made in like a cruiser, right? Or especially when you get to like battleships and aircraft carriers, right? So it's not like World of Tanks where you have this huge pool to pull from, and I know that they're also running out of real historical tanks to pull from too for World of Tanks. I think they went off the rails some time ago in World of Tanks. But guys, that is my 2 cents on the topic. It's just that they're out of real still historical ships, or they're running out of real still historical ships, and they don't want to just keep pumping out paper ships, so they're going to start doing more of these sister ships, right? And I think that's just going to be the future of the game from here on out. That's another reason why they went with submarines too. That's a whole new class, and a lot of nations developed submarines during and post World War II, right? Those became big players after World War II, with nuclear powered submarines and all that jazz. So wouldn't be surprised if we see more and more World War II diesel electric submarines. Then we might even get some early nuclear boats, which would be kind of nuts. But I mean, hey, super ships are a thing now, and I can see the Nautilus getting added as a super submarine, right? But anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you have a wonderful Tuesday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.